it to me like, give it to me like, give it to me like, give it to me like.
How many lives does it take to realize what's going on? How many years have gone by? When will I reach the finish line? Does it ever end? Is there some reason to all of this? Bit by bit, to all of this. Bit by bit, to all of this. Bit by bit, to all of this. Bit by bit, to all of does it ever end? Is there some reason to all of this? To all of this? To all of this? By bit, to all of this. Bit by bit, to all of see it on my face. I made up my mind. Not another day. You're on borrowed time. Let me get away. Yeah, I'm running. Yeah, I'm running. So love me or leave me. I'm standing alone. Can't shake a feeling that lives in my bones. Lie to me, tell me you wish that you could, but nothing you gave me is worth what you took. 'Cause baby, when I'm gone for good. Feel it rising up, then I push it down, saying you're in love, I could go without. Let me get away. It's over now, it's over now. So love me or leave me, I'm standing alone. Can't shake a feeling that lives in my bones. Lie to me, tell me you wish that you could, but nothing you gave me is worth what you took. Walk away, don't look. Baby, when I'm gone for good.
Just a simple thought. Who am I to you if I'm new to myself? What am I to you if I'm hollow? Who am I to you if I'm no one? If I'm no one to myself? Why do we quit when it gets rough? Why do we lie?
Just take a breath and take it deep to show the world that you can see a life that's full of wonder, but it will never be enough.
Welcome, everyone. Every time you walk through these doors, you're taking steps to find yourself. Remember, this is a safe place. There's no judgment. You are accepted right where you're at, and wherever that leads, to find your own peace and happiness. Feel free to express yourself to release your anxiety. I want you to be able to walk out with inner strength to finally be free.
Truth. I wish I could open up to you and just let loose, but my vocal cords get tight when the devil pulls on this noose, and then I'm back to keeping everything bottled up inside. But he's not gonna keep me from pulling the throttle back this time. He's not gonna keep me trapped like this. I can't get out of bed, I was never made to act like this. I'm packing up my bags and he can't stop me from running fast like this. I'm not gonna be a slave to these voices of anxiety. I'm shoving the devil back for every time that he lied to me, and I'm taking a belt to these demons who whisper despair in my ear, and I'm ignoring every naysayer who stands and stares when I'm near. I'm moving forward out of this slump. I took my bruises, I took my lumps. I fell down, but I got right back up. So give me a torch and let's light that up. I'm setting fire to the devil and I'm dousing these demons in gasoline. Look at you now. Now you're not laughing at me. Now who's the one who's being tortured and punked? Now who's the one closing every door that I want? Now who's the one watching the other burn to the ground? Don't look away from me. You better turn back around. I'm not done talking to you now. I'm watching your moves. I'm on your back and I'm stalking you too. And when you try to ruin some other kid's life, I'll be stopping you too. You took 30 years of my life and I can't get that back. You told me to end my life and I nearly got killed for that. You took me down, but
I'm good. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is a wonderful, wonderful Thursday. I want to welcome you guys to the Tater-Talks podcast, the podcast where video gaming, spirituality, and mental health all coexist together as one. For those of you, this is your first time joining me. I'm your host, Tater-Talks. You can call me Tater for short. And just welcome. We got a lot to discuss today. Today we're going to be, this is an incredible episode for me, for us today. We're going to talk about something that a lot of us carry deep inside of us. The weight of an abusive past we cannot resolve, and how to begin the process of forgiving ourselves for what we couldn't or could not control. Before we get started, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panel for this week. Starting off with Aaron, our normal guy that has come with us for the past couple of weeks. Aaron, how you doing?
I've been okay.
Been okay.
Struggling a little bit.
I got you, man. And then for a second time appearance, we have Atlas. Atlas, how you doing this evening?
This evening's pretty good.
Yeah.
This week's been a little challenging, but not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. And then for appearing on the first time of our podcast, we have definitely had a few talks on the back burner about when we can get an appearance here. But we have Birdie. How you doing? How you doing today, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. Birdie, can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I am a mental health nurse at a Jerry psych facility.
Okay. How long, if you don't mind me asking, how long you been doing it?
6 years.
6 years. Okay. What got you into helping out in mental health?
Um, so when in nursing school, you get asked what like field you want to go into,
Hmm.
and that's like one of the first questions they ask just to kind of get you mentally prepared as you're going through school, which field, like which subject really like resonates with you. And when we got into the mental health section, we watched the Joker movie, and like the whole like just dynamic of like how it was portrayed. I was like, okay, like that was very interesting. And then we had a project where we had to write this like summary of like what our mental health was and then do a whole presentation. And when I did mine over dementia, that's when I knew my Jerry psych was like my cliche. pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay. We're definitely happy to have you aboard here. Definitely have been looking forward to the conversation, especially revolving around this particular issue. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. People when it comes to traumatic situations, people are able to sit there and say, yeah, I've been through this, but for the people that are fresh and whatnot, they don't know how to actually move forward. Whether it be for an example, something I'm going to share tonight is I'm going to talk about the relationship between me and my uncle. That's kind of that's definitely going to be the center point coming from my perspective, because we'll definitely get to that down the road. I don't want to, but to kind of divulge further, the video that we watched just a few moments ago, I don't want to necessarily say he does like slam poetry, but he does a lot of like really big poems and whatnot. His name is Clayton Jennings. I've watched a few of the big videos that came out, and I really love the video aspect of what he explains, because notice how at the very beginning of the video, he was going to an anxiety support group, and as he was explaining everything, you realize, unfortunately, not a lot of support groups are really able to handle all the necessary issues. Honestly, there are some support groups that just don't care, and it sucks. The reason why I say it sucks is because, as I've said it before, what I've noticed is a lot of no, you're fine. I'll definitely try to fix the link here in a minute. But a lot of support groups receive a lot of funding, but it just stays in the pocket of the support group, and they're not helping people. They're not outreaching like they should be. They're not going above and beyond to try and help other places, and it really sucks, because that's you don't know how many lives you could honestly save, no matter how little it could be. To sort of get into the opening here, I hope you guys are ready. The first question on the list is, what comes to mind when you think about self-forgiveness? Is this something that you find easy or difficult, and why? For those of you that are watching us I definitely like to see what your responses are. I've got you on a whole nother monitor here. You're definitely not going to be ignored. So we definitely want to hear your input as well. If I see that it is respectful and it goes towards a statement towards the podcast, I'll definitely mention it and sort of talk about it in our episode today. Who wishes to answer first? Go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna pull the notes up.
Get your life together.
So when you say what comes to mind about self-forgiveness, is this something easy or difficult?
Yeah.
To me, I feel like it's situational.
In what aspect?
Because I feel like self-forgiveness can come from many different things. Like, say, like you and I got in like an argument and had a little fallout. Like, self-forgiveness for that would be completely different than, like, I don't know, like something I did at work, like maybe I forgot to give someone their medication, like that'd be a completely different self-forgiveness. So it's hit or miss on easy or difficult because sometimes it's so much easier than like other things. Like we'll talk about some of those a little later. But for the most part, I feel like it's very difficult.
Okay. What about you, Aaron?
I'd say it's gotta be pretty difficult. No matter the situation it's gonna be difficult to find it.
Okay.
At least for me.
What about you, Atlas?
I would say it's difficult because a lot of times when you talk about self forgiveness, the question is, are you there to be able to do that yet or not? Because a lot of people take the entirety of the situation, and they're not always ready to break it up into pieces first. You're not likely to take a bite out of a problem if you're trying to bite the whole thing.
Okay. So to put some light onto the subject, me and my uncle, when I was younger, we were, of course, two peas in a pod. You couldn't find anything to separate us. We both had a massive love for music. He actually got me into Broadway. As much as people deny it, okay, I love Broadway. Fight me, at me, okay. Anyway, but he got me into Broadway. He got me into classical music. He got me into a lot of things in life. And he introduced me to Martha Stewart, Rachel Ray, and what over the course of time, there was a very big split between him and I. When I turned 16 when I turned 18 and I went off to Job Corps, we actually had a fallout because so much stuff had happened in the family between my mom going off and doing her thing and leaving me and my older brother to the side. Between trying to get through school, my uncle, he was not a parent. My uncle was not a parent, and he was not somebody who could just go ahead and take on two teenagers because he had no experience in it. And so between the arguments that we would have with him, because, we were teenagers, between trying to get through life and trying to enter into adulthood itself, it got to the point where him and I just wouldn't talk to each other ever again. And the reason of this topic is because, unfortunately, he passed away this past December. And I went 6 years not being able to talk to him. And I would try to apologize to him. I would try to send out, little messages or try to send an email. And I I would honestly beg and plead just to have a conversation with him. He thought that the family didn't like him because he was gay. He didn't tell a lot of people, and it's fine, you know. But at the same time, the family kind of already knew. We were just waiting for him to finally be able to be open about it. And when he told me, because I remember when I graduated, before I went off to Job Corps, we kind of had a heart to heart, and he was like, "Well, I want to tell you something that I feel is very, very difficult for me." And he finally told me, it's like, "Hey, I'm gay." And at the same time, I told him, I was like, I still love you. I'm not going to judge you regardless. But even then, after everything in retrospect, it took an emotional toll on me, because now that he's gone, I couldn't have those conversations with him. I couldn't finally have the sit down recommunication with him anymore. And so the one thing that I struggled with for many years was, how can I forgive myself finally for the things that I did in the past? How can I finally let go and be at peace, knowing that he is finally at peace? And so that's kind of that's going to be the general, like I said, that's going to be the general from my purview. So I agree with all three of y'all when y'all said self-forgiveness can be situational, but it's also very difficult depending on how drastic are we talking. Is it a simple getting mad at somebody because they didn't do the dishes, or did you just lose like your right-hand man, like your best friend, over the course of years, and you two had a fallout? My next question is, where do you feel you start the process of forgiving yourself when there's no closure from past trauma?
I got you.
Go ahead.
I talked a little bit about the situation as a whole and how much weight it is when you take on the entirety of it, breaking it up. Um, Personally, I start to forgive myself when I start to get to a point where I'm able to look at it at a standpoint of what I can and can't control in the situation. And once I start to do that, I'm able to take some of that weight off of me. I'm able to take off what I couldn't control and start facing what I could control, what I did do, what I start to reflect on those items. And that's when I start to begin forgiving myself for what I could have done better, what I did wrong, or recognizing, what, I actually wasn't wrong with this one. I was only self doubting myself uh because X, Y, and Z. Um that's when I start to self forgive myself. Or self forgiveness.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to ponder on that question?
Um, I agree with that list. Like kind of breaking it down on what you can and cannot control. Another thing that helps me with self-forgiveness is like I try to see the different point of views depending on the different parties involved, just to kind of understand why things happened the way it happened. You know what I mean? To try to fully like grasp everything, because once I feel like I've grasped enough of the situation, I feel like I'm able to kind of forgive for myself, but also work towards forgiveness towards the other person as well.
Okay. Okay. Zoomies just said, yes, self responsibility is huge. Closure is something we need so our ego can feel better about the situation. Yeah, it's all about perspective. Finger, you want to, or excuse me, Aaron, you want to say anything on that, or?
I really don't have room to say anything 'cause I
Okay.
have not forgiven myself for a lot of shit. And I just let it eat at me.
Okay. And that's fine, man. You know, like, literally, this is an open space to talk about that stuff.
Yep.
And so, like I said, you know, we understand it's very difficult. So, now that we have a somewhat definition here of what we can define as finally getting self forgiveness, what are some of the issues that you guys think can come from either unresolved abuse, unresolved conflict, you know, essentially in hindsight 2020, what are you taking my story on my uncle from the moment of impact when we finally said, you know what, you're nothing but, you know, XYZ, and then hung up the phone. There was no I love yous. There was no I'll talk to you later. There was no happy holidays. What do you think comes out of that, outside of that, you know, from the moment of impact?
Definitely long lasting mental and emotional damage for certain. I'll give you a personal example. A lot of men tend to feel used by their partners, like we're just there to provide, to do, um, and just to be the moneymaker a lot of times. And the effect that has had on, for example, me personally, because I was in a situation a couple of years ago where there were jokes being made about me just being a wallet to a partner, and then later I got cheated on, and it was a whole thing. And by the end of all of that, I was left with a really big mess mentally, where I had lasting effects that I had to consciously try to catch myself from acting on to my current partner. And, it becomes a whole conversation when it starts to happen, whether it's me or my partner having problems from our past, that we face them on together and recognize them for exactly that these are the scars of the past. It becomes a lot easier to manage it when you do that, especially if you take it on together. You have more patience for each other because you're like, all right, this isn't you, this is that. Um, but like I said, long lasting emotional damage, like trust is broken, and it's broken in such a way that it leaves a self doubt in your mind, and it corrodes at your mind if you're not able to address it. Anyways, I passed the mic.
Okay.
I agree with Zoe. Um, I feel like it does plant that whole sense of like regret and emptiness and stuff on top of, I mean, it could do so much to your mental health, just as far as like causing anxiety, trust issues, depression, like all of that stuff. Like, I don't know. Just like, I know my story is going to be a little bit different than yours, but my grandma basically like helped raise me my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the one person on this earth that I like seeked approval from. Well, when I graduated, like her one wish was to see me go off to college.
Okay.
And I was basically done with school at the time. I mean, who's not done with school at 18? Like,
I
you
know
just went
I
through
was. Look,
all right. Like, you don't want to go back
I'm
to
so
school. Like,
done.
nah. But like, I kind of took my selfishness and was like, I'm not listening to you. Like, I'm an adult now. Like, I'm not going to college. And so I took a year off.
Okay.
And that October, I lost her. And it hit me really, 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 really hard just because I was like, like all she wanted to do is see me go like to college, like just see me succeed. And I just basically like didn't care, like just at all.
Right.
And
It
like
turned it in turn.
it ate on me. Like
Yeah.
it really ate on me. Like I wasn't really able to do a lot afterwards. But like with the whole sense of like this topic, it took years to do like a self-forgiveness between that. But I'm glad it did because I mean, I went to school. I did everything like I wanted to do to get to where I am now as like a drive that like this is for you type of thing, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of want to add a little bit. Um, in the situation I was talking about, for example, I I had my confidence built up by a person, and then it got obliterated with a litany of lies and deceit, and it left me shattered in a lot of ways. Um, you know, a relationship with others. If you're in a like actual relationship, I don't mean like friendship, but like an actual relationship, you're supposed to be building each other up. And a lot of times when people break up for whatever reason, out of pain and hatred and whatever, they decide they want to start destroying each other. And then that in itself is kind of abusive. I mean, it's not kind of, it is. Um, it that leaves lasting effects as well. Um, Personally, it left me with a lot of self doubt too, and second guessing. Um, it not only made me second guess about what I'm doing with others, but about myself. It leaves you with more insecurities too. I think if somebody built you up and then later they decide they try to tear you back down, you start questioning everything that you were told about you, you know, from somebody that was close to you. It's absolutely destructive. And it doesn't have to be your partner, it could be a parent, it could be a family member, even just a friend. You don't have to have a special like relationship, sexual or not.
No, right, right. When it comes, when it comes to the perspective of my uncle, I literally put him on a pedestal. I wanted to make sure that man knew every single award I had. I got a lot of music awards thanks to his teaching. My uncle had my uncle had a music degree from going to Jackson State University. The man was known. So he got a degree for playing the flute. And he was very well known amongst I forget what type of society, like the actual name of it. But it was, like an international flute society. He knew people from like France. He knew people from Hong Kong, so for me to finally break his heart like that during the fallout, I'm talking, it hit me like a truck. And going over the emotions that happen at Impact, there's the guilt of what you just did. There's the shame. There's the inducing anxiety of what's going to happen from here. because you acted in the moment. Not necessarily saying you can't have feelings, no, but it's the point of when you finally realized I screwed up. Or not even speaking from just a family experience, because I don't want to get stuck on just a family. Okay, that's an aspect of it. What about a domestic violence issue?
I want to
Yeah.
also add to it. It's not always even your fault, and I think that's challenging aspect of it because the reality is not everybody's gonna be nice to you, and we're not. And sometimes people do just bad things for no good reasons. And
And you try to blame yourself.
yes, that's
You
where I was going with it.
go ahead. I'm gonna let you
No,
talk then.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No. Pick it up from there. That was
Okay.
exactly where I was going with it.
Yeah. So when it comes to domestic violence issues, typically the victim itself starts to self-blame. Was I not good enough? Did I not provide the things that I needed? Did I not, you start blaming yourself on things that were never your fault.
With that,
Go ahead.
I think a lot of that comes from mental mind games from the
The
abuser.
abuser.
Yeah,
Because they plant those seeds in your head so they have control. And I think a lot of that comes from that.
yeah, very
And
much so.
once you get out of it, though, like I feel like you no longer feel trapped, but you are still trapped in your own mind because that's not something you just forgive and forget. Like it's with you for life. And that's when you start second guessing everyone and start having trust issues with incoming new people or new relationships or just like your old relationships. Like you start like really getting trust issues with everyone. And I feel like it really has a mental, like,
Oh,
yeah, like it's almost like it's a wrecking ball basically
Yeah.
for every wall you've ever had up. And
So
it's awful.
yeah. So as I said, as much as I'm going to hone in on the family side, the other side that I want to be sure we take a look at is, the domestic side of dealing with whether it's a abusive mother, abusive father, whether it be an abusive relationship, opposite sides, whether it be even battle over the kids. Battle over the kids when it comes to divorce.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you say abusive, you're meaning like every type of abuse, like mental, physical, verbal,
Yes.
sexual, like all of that, right? Okay.
Yes. Yes, I'm putting all of those categories together.
I want to add a spot to that real quick.
Go ahead.
And because we talked about spouse abuse, and let's say you did do something, or you didn't do something, like you were neglecting something, whatever the case is.
Are we
That still
talking
doesn't
before you go any further? Are we speaking in the mind of the abuser or the mind of the victim?
in the mind of the victim.
Okay.
You've done. Let's say you got home. You didn't do all these different things. A lot of people blame themselves still for physical abuse or whatever abuse they endure after for not doing something. I want to point out that just because you didn't do something doesn't mean you deserved the abuse. There are better ways to handle everything than to be abusing your partner. I just wanted to throw that out there while we had that kind of scenario there.
No, you're fine. That's perfectly correct.
Yeah, as I say, that was a really good point.
So yeah, don't think just because you didn't do the dishes does not mean that you deserved to get yelled at for the next 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I'm not saying you can't yell at somebody. I mean, is it right? No, but emotions happen. What I'm speaking in retrospect is any of the what I call hot ticket issues. Did they hit you? Did they actually put their hands on you? Did they try to take advantage of you? Did you at one point felt sorry for the situation and they played a mind game on you to cause you to be in bed with them? There's many examples that I could try to throw out there for y'all. Couple of comments here. Lego says, I can't have a relationship with my father because of my stepmom. She was my worst enemy growing up. She put me down and abused me more than she ever supported me. And because of that, I could never have a good, healthy relationship with my dad. It was like she was out to get me and make my life hell. I feel like even because of that, I have not picked the best people to be around and got myself in some really bad situations. Okay. Zumi also says it's normal because we put so much weight on just wanting to be loved that we don't know what it actually means to be loved unconditionally, which starts within us. Be there, physical, financial, mental, Zumi's been there. Okay. So, coming from Lego's perspective, if I'm getting this wrong, please tell me and I will correct myself. I myself also had an abusive stepfather. Now, before shit hits the fan here, let me clarify. Was it physical abuse? No, the man didn't, put a hand on me. However, there was a lot of emotional abuse. My father did not like my uncle. My stepfather did not condone music really in the household. He didn't like that I loved the sound of music. He didn't like the fact that I was a 2.0 model of my uncle. And so he would ridicule me and he would call me gay because I was in music. I remember one specific memory that sticks in my mind is I'm honored to have won the National Choral Award during my high school years. That award only goes to one student in the entire choir, and typically that's a senior type of award in music. When I won the award, I went home and you get two things. One, you get a little certificate, and then two, your name actually gets put up on a plaque at the school for many years to come of all the other recent award winners. When I got home, I was ecstatic. I showed my stepfather the award, and the man said, "Of course, I have another in the family," and proceeds to tear up the actual certificate that was only in my hands for maybe 30 minutes. So I get it. You want to talk about somebody that's out to get you. The man ridiculed me over my weight. I get it. I'm a big person. I'm a big individual. I need to watch what I eat and whatnot. But he would take it to another extent. It would be massive PT because he was ex-military. It would be, God forbid if I wanted to make me something to eat in the kitchen for a meal or something. I would have to do drastic things. And so it's very hard to begin to, as Zumi put it, it became very hard for me to try to love myself for who I was because I was being ridiculed left and right by the opposing factions,
I can actually speak on that as well.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Put some light on the subject.
Just a little fun fact about me. I grew up with a stepfather as well. As many of you already know, I am also trans, male to female. So growing up, I wasn't
The
like
star
growing
pupil.
up as a gay child, I wasn't the son he wanted,
I got
even
you.
though I was actually never really his to begin with.
I got you.
So like he treated me different than the rest of the kids in the house. Anytime that I wanted to do something, it was just the worst possible time to in his life.
I got you.
And like fast forward, I got into cheer, never supported me. Like he would never come to any of the games, like nothing. So like after school, like I wouldn't get home till like 5 o'clock. So I wouldn't have eaten till like since like noon, if that, like sometimes you're busy and don't get a lunch.
Yeah,
And like
high school lunch is like at 10:30 in the morning.
yeah, like it's so bad.
I want to know who came up with that rule.
Like I hated that. Like I just woke up. Like let me have breakfast first.
Yeah.
But I would get home from like cheer practice, and our cheer practice wasn't just like we're just practicing cheers. No, like 90% of that is like tumbling and all your like basket tosses and your um I cannot think right now. It just saved my life. But like
All the routines that come with cheer
yeah, like
practice.
everything. Like you had your baskets, you had like all of your pyramids. Like it's hard on the body. So I'd go home and those little like bags of chips you can buy in like a 30 bag box
Oh
at
yeah,
Walmart.
the little party pack.
Yeah, that you would like typically buy and like throw in your kid's lunch pail.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would grab one of those and he'd be like, "Wow, you're eating again." And I'm just looking at him, I was like, "I actually haven't eaten since breakfast." Like,
Not
what?
knowing what kind of day you literally just got done.
Right. And like I want to see you like go do what I just did. Like, come on. But it got to the point to like it tore me mentally to not even be able to just come home and eat something real quick without being like bullied by my own like in my eyes my own like parent, my own
No, you're
guardian.
right.
Like I didn't even feel safe at home to the point that I stopped eating. Like I wouldn't eat a single thing in front of a single pair of eyes. And my mom like kind of caught on to it that I was waking up at night and like sneaking into the kitchen to like eat something real quick to the point that she would leave a plate in the microwave just so when I snuck in there at night I would have something like better to eat than me just to like try to like scarf something down to like and it got so bad that like my doctor diagnosed me with an eating disorder and like mentally like it's not something you get over like ever like just because it sets in the back of your mind
Right.
regardless. So like the whole self-doubt and stuff that has been mentioned previously, like I still like personally struggle with going out to eat somewhere. So like going on dates and stuff is like never been a go for me. Like if you want to go on a date, like how about you come to my house? Like let's cook, like I can handle just a one-on-one versus sitting at like a restaurant and I'm feeling like 100 people are judging like how I'm eating, what I'm eating, and how much I'm eating.
Right,
So like I
because
still struggle with it mentally
yeah,
of
because
something that happened 12 years ago.
exactly. Even today, it took me a while to be able to finally get over the issues between me and my stepfather. Do I talk to him this day? Negative. I haven't spoken to him in many, many years, and I wish the best of luck to him. It is what it is. So to kind of move forward here, what are some ways that we can start to reframe our mindset to avoid self-blame?
I kind of mentioned earlier, kind of thinking about what you can and can't control. I
Okay.
avoid self blame on items that I had absolutely no control through that process. I know it's kind of reiterating, but I feel like I avoid taking on that extra weight, that extra emotional toll by doing that. Um, at the end of the day, again, there are some things that I had no control over. Uh, but then there were some things, and again, it, those things I can learn from them and move on. A lot of times, and this isn't every case, but a lot of times, the things that we can control, they are not, they're nowhere near significant to the abuse that we received
Right.
in any form. So, for example, um, if I'm trying to think of an example, there's there are things I did or didn't do in a previous relationship that maybe would have kept it more alive, perhaps, and then maybe not. I don't know. I can't control whether it would have or wouldn't have 100%. But I can learn from them. I can learn and take it in the sense of okay, maybe next relation when I get in, I'm gonna be more mindful about how I balance personal time with my relationship.
Right.
You know,
So,
that's not too bad, but me
well,
taking on that as opposed to blaming myself for the abuse, it's a lot less weight.
I gotcha. So, but essentially, what I'm getting at though is from once everything, when you finally, hindsight 2020, when you finally realized that you weren't in the wrong, or when something just happened and you tried to figure out, are you really in the wrong or not? I feel like one of the ways that we can, I feel on myself here, some of the ways we can start to reframe our mindset is to analyze the situation. Common sense. I know that's a kind of a rarity these days, but you know, hey.
Amen.
But common sense itself, you know, is there any reason why you should be physically touched or get physical unwanted touch? No. Okay, so common sense says, hey, that's a red flag. Number two, the mind games of from the abuser. You know, hey, I really care about you. You're everything to me. You're the one that I want in life. And but if you could just, you know, XYZ, it's hard to describe a mind game because there's so many different examples. Whispering sweet nothings, to turning around and not being, you know, the white knight in shining armor. There's the drastic changes of constantly yelling, telling you that you are no worth. Physical interaction. I mean, there's a lot, and so like I said, you need to analyze the situation first. Call for
I hate
help.
mind games.
Call for help. Get a second opinion. We tell people in the medical field, you know, you're entitled to a second opinion. Promise you that shit works. Go talk to somebody else. Now, be wise on who you talk to because they could also point you in the wrong direction. But talk to an actual mental health advocate. Talk to somebody who's licensed in mental health. Talk to somebody who has counseling services available in mental health. I know earlier, you know, I was kind of dogging on support groups, but not all support groups are bad. I do want that to be told. Not all support groups are bad, but there are, unfortunately, a few eggs in the basket that need to get thrown in the garbage. I don't believe in a lot of government help. I kind of frown upon a lot of government help because, in my eyes, they don't really help. I've spoken in past episodes. How many times have you called the Salvation Army and they just give you another phone list? How many times do you call United Way and they do the same thing? They ask you, "Oh, well, did you call the Salvation Army?" How many times are you going to get a phone list instead of somebody that actually jumps on the line and says, "Okay, what's going on? Where can I help?"
Going from that though, I agree. Like getting a second opinion. Sometimes it's just as simple as like your best friend. Like you never know who someone else knows or what someone else has been through. So with that, like they might not go through the exact same thing you have, but something similar. So they might be able to tell you like, well, this is how I was able to get out and move forward. This was how I was able to overcome my own mental barrier because of this situation. Or they might just be that ear to listen. And like once you say something, like especially your best friend, they're not scared to tell you like you're acting stupid. Like they're not scared. So sometimes it's just as simple as getting a second opinion or just talking to your best friend and getting their input or maybe their guidance because they might have someone they know that could physically help you, regardless if that's a therapist or just like another professional, really. Not it doesn't have to be a therapist.
All right. No, I got you. Finn, you got anything you want to add, or kind of quiet over there?
Yeah, it's been it's been a rough week for me.
You want to talk about it?
Eh,
Okay.
it's just 3 years since my mom's dad died. September, November. It has been 21 years since his wife died. My dad's dad died in March. So within 6 months, I lost both my grandfathers, who I looked up to heavily.
Okay.
I mean, the man played music and didn't just the newer stuff. He went and played the oldies, the stuff he grew up on. He worked with wood. I mean, he did everything, and last 6 years of his life, I wasn't there. Moved out here, moved away from him. I went out there and seen him a couple times, but I never called him. I know I should have. I I know I wasn't the best grandson he had, but he still loved me and was still proud of me. I still haven't forgiven myself for not calling him, being there for him. There are all the good memories of him out hunting and all that stuff, but 6 years I talked to him maybe 3 times. Now I don't get the option to do it anymore, and it's hard.
I 100% agree, man. I know of course, we all we all go through our own emotions. Not everybody can say the statement, "I understand how you feel," because at the end of the day, we truly don't. There's a couple of those statements that get said that the moment I hear it, I'm just like, you really didn't have to say that, but I mean, we admire the courtesy. And like I told, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't even like to compare. Like, I don't like it being a competition. Sometimes people just want to feel heard. They just want to. They just want to be the wall that you bounce the tennis ball off of.
Right.
Like you said, those kind of phrases, they turn you away sometimes. That's all I had on that part.
I agree. You know, sometimes you go looking for help, but you're not necessarily needing assistance. You're wanting somebody to just listen. There's
That's
five.
why I like. Oh,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that's why I like the phrase like I can relate a little bit better.
No, I
Like
understand.
yeah, like if I'm like talking to you about something, you like I mentioned earlier, you might not have went through the exact same thing, but something's like similar. So you can sit there and say like I relate to you. You don't understand what I'm going through, but you can relate to it. So like I don't know, just the I understand or anything just similar to it. It's kind of like a letdown, especially if you're talking to someone that you're trying to seek it like not attention, like guidance from. Like that was another reason I went into becoming a licensed therapist was because growing up, like I went and seen a therapist and like I said before, growing up as a gay person, especially the buckle of the Bible belt, like yeah, I got bullied a lot and all that other stuff. So I had to go see a therapist to kind of like ease my mom's like mind. And she was always telling me, she goes, well, I understand. I was like, no, you don't. Like you never woke up. I mean, you might have, like for your own like separate reason, but you didn't wake up every morning terrified to go to school, wondering if you're going to get beat up or even killed just for being who you are and who you like. Like, you don't understand it. Can you relate to it in some type of way? Yeah, probably. But you don't understand. Like, that's not something that you just get taught.
And a lot of people nowadays, unfortunately, they turn it almost into a competition. Like, oh, I had it worse, or something that of that nature, and that highly turns away from uh, any kind of productive conversation. Personally, at least for me, it does. Like, I don't want to be a competition. I want us to both be able to feel the emotions that we're feeling and be able to share them in confidence of each other and each other's trust rather than being told, well, you didn't have it as bad, or you can't understand how I feel because you just didn't have it that bad. Something like that. I, I just, I don't, like I said, the choice of words makes a big difference on whether you feel heard, whether you feel like you're you're actually feeling a release of those emotions as opposed to just like whatever, you know.
Well, it's just like, I'm glad that you actually brought that up, Bertie, because I myself, not necessarily do I agree with everything within the LGBTQ community. Um, I don't agree with a lot of what goes on in that community. However, I still have the respect to still have a conversation. You're still a human being. You're still you. And I feel, and I do agree with that statement, with the Bible Belt, it's very strict. It's very, how dare you? It's very judgmental. It's very,
Very much.
we can go on all and on and on. However, I try to be a very different individual. I do believe in my ways, but that does not give me a free pass to tell you everything that I think.
Or force it on them.
Yeah, or force it, because that puts me in the wrong. So I definitely admire that you brought that up, because that's definitely an ongoing issue. Is not only are we trying to get self-love for ourselves, but even just simple respect. So coming into the next portion of my line of questions for you, in the role of forgiveness and healing, earlier we were going over the definition of what we called, what is our own personal definition when somebody asks you what is self-forgiveness. We went over, how does it affect us? What we've gone over, what are the tendencies of when you don't have the self-forgiveness? We get anxiety, comes out disorders, it comes into therapy needs, it comes into, we're avoiding the situation. Now I want to kind of flip it over. What does forgiveness mean to you? Is it letting go, finding peace? Not necessarily letting the abuser off the hook, but a way for you to finally breathe, accept, and move forward for yourself.
Actually, very much that. Like, I had I have a family member that I chose to no longer be in contact with regularly, and it has a lot to do with how they behave and how they treated me and others around me. And part of me forgiving them is living, learning, and moving on from it. But more to it than just that. I can continue the cycle or I could break the cycle. Am I gonna continue stewing on this hatred or anger with them? Or am I gonna move on and invest my energy in something else? Like, I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of being frustrated. I'm tired of feeling all these negative emotions. So I forgive them. I don't forget it, and I move on because I want to spend that energy on myself. I want to spend that energy on significant others around me that I care about. I want to uplift my life, not be tied down by what feels like an anchor at times. And in a lot of ways, that's exactly what anger is. It's a brick tied to your ankles, and either you can cut it and swim up, or you can let it drown you. That's all I got on that.
What was the question again?
What do you define as, excuse me, let me scroll back up here.
Is it what does forgiveness mean to you?
Yes. Is it your own personal definition of what it means to finally to finally self-forgive? Is it finally going to Starbucks, getting some coffee, or is it finding some personal peace?
I mean, the way you summed it up earlier was like spot on. And I also agree with what Atlas said. I will bring up a little point that I've ran into, especially in like the streaming and gaming world. I was a part of a friend group just because like I was helping a bunch of people with their affiliate statuses, and like when you start doing that, you start bringing in your community, you start meeting their community, and it just starts growing from there. Well, I was a I was a part of it. I was friends with the streamer and then some of the community members. And then there was a big fight and a falling out between some of these members and that streamer. And I've had the group of friends add me to this like group message with all of them so they can kind of like vent in a way. And then I had her messaging me and like venting as well, kind of getting like both sides, but I wasn't playing like the fence. I wasn't playing the field. I was just listening.
Okay, I was
And
actually going to ask, were you playing mediator?
no, like I didn't go back and forth. Like I just let them talk.
Okay.
And one thing I did tell both parties really is, look, like this is childish. Like y'all are fighting over something as simple as playing a game with someone. Like y'all's letting it ruin your day. You're letting it ruin the mood on your stream. Like you need to really sit down, take a step back, and really think on this situation. And if even if it's just talking to me and getting it out, like that's cool. Like I will be your ears. But one thing I really stress to them is I'm a firm believer of you can forgive but not forget.
Yes.
And I know that whole saying is forgive and forget. I don't agree with that at all. Because if you forgive and forget, you're acting as if something never happened. And then that just can cause so much like further trauma in the future. Like I don't agree with it. And when it comes to like forgive and forget or forgive and not forget, when it comes to like a situation like that, I told him, I was like, you don't have to forgive them. You don't have to physically reach out to them and say, hey, I forgive you. Forgive them within yourself and move on. Like, you don't have to have that person in your corner. You don't have to have that person as a follower, as a friend, as anything in your life. Just forgive within yourself, understand that the situation was what it was, understand what your part of that situation was, and move on. And I feel like finding forgiveness within all of it falls from within. Like it's nothing that anyone else can control. You can't control anyone else. So when you're thinking of like the forgiveness for like yourself, like just take a step back, like eliminate yourself from the situation and process it the way you will process it. Forgive the whole situation, like forgive them in like your own heart and then like move forward.
Yeah, I agree with not forgetting as well. Learn from it as well. That's a big part of it, I think.
So we're kind of, I want to kind of clarify here. Of course, we have the, I'm really liking the answers coming from the, thank you so much. Coming from the victim side, okay? We're coming up with it. We got a lot of good answers. I want to switch this up. I want you to think in the mindset of the abuser. The not necessarily an abuser, but I want you to try to think in the mindset of
The person doing the action.
yes, the person doing the action. Whether it's forgiveness or a way to self-atone when you finally realized I really fucked up. Because a lot of people, yes, we go with the statement of forgive but not forget to help you in the future. But coming from the wrongdoer, how do you make up?
Well, it's not exactly my name is Earl. That was I had to. But I think learning from what you did and changing for the better is important. Um you may not you have to face the fact that what you did may not get you a second chance with that person. Like hands down, that person may never want to talk to you. However, you could learn from your mistake and avoid doing that to somebody else. And in a lot of cases, especially if we want to go a little more extreme on the abuse end, go get help. Let's take domestic, for example, a spouse. Physical abuse often is the topic. If you have a problem laying your hands on your spouse, you have an anger problem. You let your emotions get the best of you and you make bad decisions because of it. You need to go learn how to how to handle it healthy. Because obviously what you're doing ain't healthy at all. And it's going to cost you everything and more. Not only is it going to cost you your relationship, it would probably put you in jail. So, not saying that these government programs are the greatest, but start exploring the avenues on getting help. And the therapy itself, it allows you to vent in a place where they're legally bound to keep their damn mouth shut. I tell that to people. Like, you tell a friend, they go tell another friend, great, you got an asshole friend. You tell a therapist, and they tell somebody else, they're losing their fucking job, they're losing their license, and they might be catching some charges and a lawsuit.
And you're making money.
And you're making money.
Hey.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
but like I not to cut you off, Atlas. I feel like that's like a very I don't want to say basic, but like almost really the only way to answer that. Because I feel like 9 times out of 10, if you are an abuser, you're not thinking to yourself, like, well, dang, like, I'm an abuser. I need to seek help. Like, they don't ever come to the like realization of it. Like, they just continue going. So I feel like
mhm.
that answer, like that question itself, is very hard to answer.
Mhm.
We would just say like what we would do if it was brought to our attention. So I feel like that's the only answer I could even come up with.
I, it comes with like self awareness. I'll use an example. I knew somebody who, um, this isn't to dive into that specific topic too much. I knew somebody who used to spank, and I got nothing against that, by the way. But he realized that when he got into that, he allowed his temper to get too much of himself. Um, that's not to say that everybody has that problem. Is that this specific person realized themselves that they themselves allowed their temper to get too much, and they were willing to do more than just spank. Um, the point being really is if you realize that you're losing control of your actions, you're losing control of yourself as a whole with anybody as a whole, that's the time when you need to be like, all right, I need to change something because this is not working and I'm going down the wrong path, period. Emotionally, mentally. And
So you're speaking in the aspect of we're speaking in the aspect of you have found a new desire is what I'm going to label that respectfully.
yeah, no, it's
But
good.
you tend to get carried away. Would that be the definition we're going with?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I'm sorry,
Okay.
that was not the best example. I actually happened to
You're
take
fine. I'm just trying to put respectful
serve to it.
definitions. Um,
It wasn't my best choice of words. Most days
no,
I'm
you're
better
good.
than that.
I mean, I'm chill explaining that as well. Because you are learning who you are as an individual, and there are sexual wellness can be an aspect of as well. When do you find something as where's the line on that? What's too far? What's too much? Where are the boundaries in that department? However, I was
that's really
wondering,
what I was looking for. Really, where's the boundaries?
right?
Are you teaching them lesson, or are you doing it just to hurt somebody? That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Would I love that you brought that up because that put a completely different perspective on
Okay.
like the abuser. You know what I mean? Because when
Yeah.
I hear it, I'm thinking of someone that just like came home mad and just started swinging on his partner,
Yes,
or a girl not getting her way and swinging on her partner, and just being like
or even
impulsive almost, like someone that's
yes,
not fully like self-aware of it. And then when you do like have that conversation, it starts getting heated and you start like laying hands again. Like, I mean, they make movies over those. Like, Enough is a really good movie of an abuser.
You're talking about the one
Like
with
Jennifer Lopez.
yes.
Like, that is a very
hmm
good movie over like the abusive, and like that guy was never going to come to realize, like, I mean, he realized it, but it
He
like he
enjoyed it.
drove to it. Yeah, like that was my aspect of it where I was like, okay, this is hard to like answer, but you putting it in that perspective, I'm like, okay, like when you realize like when I start enjoying this too much, I go too far. Like that kind of put the perspective of it's a bit easier to be self-aware over it, so you know exactly which direction of help you need.
The
it doesn't
other
even have to be enjoyment. Sorry, it could also just be that impulse, as you said. You're allowing the emotion to take over as a whole from the decision making.
Yes. The final aspect, and this is to correlate with my story with my uncle, is not not necessarily being the abuser, but like, as I stated, the person in the wrong. How do you move forward when that person has passed on? You can't talk to them. There's not really a there's not really a medicine that you can take to try to. It's not really a mind thing. It's more of a that person's gone. And so how do you finally find self peace to forgive yourself knowing that you were in the wrong and you're not able to finally apologize to them for those wrongdoings? My answer on that aspect is definitely some of the examples y'all were using, learn from it, but also I believe in spiritual warfare. I believe in the supernatural. I find myself to be religious. Pray. Not necessarily pray to, yes, you can pray, you can go pray to the Father. But it's more of those, you're speaking into existence. I'm really sorry for what I've done, whether you can hear me or not. I make this stand and vow to better myself, to move forward, to not be the person that I was, and to learn from my mistakes. It's not necessarily a way for you to be sure whether or not they've heard from beyond the spiritual world that they've heard you, and they can't just pop out of a box and go, "All right, Chief, we're good." But it's more of a you're trying to let go, and you yourself hold yourself at a higher caliber than what you used to. You now don't tolerate the same shit that you used to. You now don't tolerate the immaturity that you yourself at once were. And so to learn from it, you finally move forward and become a respectful individual. You start helping others that are in need. You start being that, as I like to say, the example of you start being the lighthouse for those that are calling out for help in the darkness.
And I like that you brought that up. When you said pray, like I knew exactly what you meant because, like, back to my story with my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
One way that really helped me was like my very first day of college. Like, I woke up and when I was getting ready, like I was talking to myself and other people's eyes, but really, like in my mind, like I was talking to her. Like, this is for you. Like, I know this is what you wanted to see me do, and I know that you're watching me now because I wholeheartedly believe in the spiritual warfare. Like, some crazy stuff happens, and you just correlate it to someone you lost. Um, but yeah, like just talking to them, kind of like get it out of your system, and like even if that means breaking down and crying, and
Yeah.
just like having a heart to heart with said person, like regardless who it is, like it might sound very weird because you feel like you're talking to yourself, but that's the only way to get it off your heart in order to have the like self-forgiveness and the healthier way of moving forward and healing, really.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about this whole thing, how you said pray, and one of the spins of the topics we've been talking about is being in the mind of the abuser. And I got to thinking they give a Bible to inmates, and what
Yeah.
comes to mind immediately is that if you're becoming aware that who you are isn't who you should be, in the sense of what you're doing was wrong, your whole moral code gets rocked. And a lot of times,
I was gonna
religion could help reset that moral code to realign with society to an extent. I'm not saying society is the greatest example, but like you to
No, you're
with
right.
others, and you you start to really start thinking about how you treat others,
No,
no
100%.
matter no matter the religion. Like there are a lot of them, even the ones people don't like. The original context behind it is designed to make you think about and reflect about how you treat your fellow members of society.
No, right. And that's also a wonderful example. The Bible that you're talking about, typically, I know in the Southern Baptist denominations, they have a program called Rock of Ages. And that's typically the program for prisoners, as the ministry will purchase or go into Rock of Ages Society, and then they'll start handing out Bibles from Rock of Ages. I myself am not a part of mainstream Christianity. I've talked about it past episodes on where I stand in Christianity. But the reason I bring up the spiritual side of it is because I do believe that, in my eyes, if I pray to my creator, if I pray to, not to get all churchy up in here, but that's the way I cope with it. Is I start going out to, trying to find that self-forgiveness. And it's okay. Let's see here. My apologies. So, we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about the first example of recognizing our abusive past. We've recognized both sides of the argument, where the mindset of the victim and then the mindset of the abuser or the wrongdoer. How exactly can both parties be able to move forward without coming in contact with each other? Because that's essentially things that a lot of people go through. Just as Aaron had talked about, he's going through. This topic, I think, has kind of hit home a little bit on how do we actually move forward when we can no longer have that typical conversation of, hey, can I call you? Hey, can we, go get some lunch somewhere and talk this out? Do you want to come over? When those options aren't available, we have to try to think of other things. Whether it has to relate to somebody passing, whether it has to relate to somebody being locked up for what they did, like I said, there's many different avenues that we can take here. And so the real steps towards healing, we've gone over acknowledging the trauma. You need to understand, you need to validate your feelings. Whether it be talking to your best friend, whether it be talking to your gamer crew that you guys always talk to, recognize that the punishment was not your fault. Recognize the common sense. Was it a justifiable action? No. Hell no. If somebody's laying hands on you, no. Negative. If somebody's going too far, as far as desires, maybe it's time to have a conversation. Because something I will say is, how do I know I'm in the wrong if nobody ever brings it up? Sometimes a conversation is all that's needed. Letting go of self-blame. I can tell you it took me 2 years to get over the self-blame that I had between me and my uncle. Many texts went out, but no answers. Many emails went out, but no answers. And I finally just got the gumption to say, okay, I've acknowledged what I've done. I've acknowledged the things that I've said. This is what's on the table. And so my next question is, what are the first steps you have taken in these stories that you three have provided to me? What are the first steps you've taken towards forgiving yourselves regarding these stories?
Well, in my own personal situation, I actually needed time to actually function. Um, it was enough that when I got home, I needed to deal with anxiety. I had really, really bad anxiety at first, to the point where I didn't want to go and do anything. I didn't want to be around a lot of people. It was overwhelming being around a lot of people. I had to actually take a deep breath and take it minute by minute, and then hour by hour, and then day by day. And I had to reboot my whole everything. And once I was finally able to just function day to day, then I was able to actually do reflection, to actually think about what happened. Um, but my first step was definitely having to reboot my life as a whole. And I had to get back to daily things first. And that might not be the right answer for everybody. Uh, but that was the answer for me. And it was not just my own answer, it was also the answer of those who loved and supported me and helped me through the process. I was very fortunate to have others help pick me back up from for what a lack of better way of putting it was knocking me on my ass.
Okay. What about you, Birdie?
I mean, for me, was losing my grandma. Um, but the first step was really allowing myself to heal because, like I said, like she raised me. So, like losing that one person, like was devastating. And then, like once I was able to heal, like that's when I really like sat down and was like, okay, like you were being so selfish. Like you took her life for granted. So I guess like analyzing like her one like wish really that I didn't fulfill while she was like alive, like just analyzing that and trying to make a not like a checklist, but like a mental like calendar in a way where I'm like, okay, like I can start school here like on this day and then I can like graduate, I can do this, like by this year I want to have this degree and like just kind of like used it as fuel, but really just like healing and then analyzing what it was that was making me feel like the self-doubt and the just the guilty conscience and stuff. Like I understood, not really. And like no, I'm using that word a lot. Analyzed what I felt was like causing it, you know?
I got you.
Like I had to really think about why I was feeling the way I was. And then once I figured it out, I was able to like help myself by trying to accomplish them now.
Right. Uh, Good Times made a statement. They said, so how do you get over something that some people say is your fault, but others say it's not? And you replay the situation over and over, wondering where you went wrong and messed up. Well, in my opinion, you start asking the common sense questions. You know, common sense is key. Are you recognizing that you were in the wrong in some of the actions, not all of them? Okay, take personal responsibility in those small key issues. Was it entirely your fault? Were you the cause of the situation? Okay. Then ask yourself, was it for the better or for the worse? Did you do it out of spite, or did you do it to actually self-improve on yourself or to try to help others? Like I said, as we've said here, you analyze the situation. Let me type out what happened. Give me a minute. It's a lot. Okay.
I feel like to answer your statement, Good Times, a little further from what he just said about asking the common sense questions is the ones that are pointing fingers at you. Ask them, like, where did I go wrong? Like, what did I do that makes me the villain in this story? Because, like we were stating earlier, like asking those questions, like as the abuser standpoint, in some people's eyes, you are the abuser. but in other people's eyes, you are the victim. I would ask the ones that are pinning you as the villain, like, why? Like, what in your narrative makes me the villain in this story? Because without that knowledge, you could replay that for the rest of your life in your head, but you're only going to see the same core memory of it as you did prior. If anything, you're going to forget most of it, and then it's just going to be like a jumbled little piece of memory. So you're never going to physically get the answer you desire or deserve by pondering it yourself.
There was a lot of
Like I would,
times. There was a lot of times between me and my uncle that at first I put the full blame on me. I took the blame for 100% of everything that happened. I thought everything that my uncle was doing to me was 100% justifiable. But then, hindsight 2020, as I grew older, I started recognizing maybe it's not all my fault. Maybe there are some things that he could have also done differently, whether it be too harsh, whether it be, okay, that could have just been a conversation, not you yelling at me for 30 minutes. There's different outlets to that. But yeah, go ahead and type it up. Once you get it typed up, I will definitely read it to the panel, and you can get 4 perspective views.
There's gonna be a lot of people who make you the villain for one thing in their story, so that the way they always look like they were the victim.
That's something I was actually about to hone in on is at what point can you just not play the victim card? Because abusers, there are typical points where an abuser makes it out like they were the victim.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one moment where you need to come in reality and you have to not play the victim card. You need to recognize the situation. You need to be able to grow up. Not saying that we cannot be sensitive to certain situations. Other situations are more crucial than others. Like Birdie was saying earlier, you two talking about her example. It was, you both are acting childish. You both are honestly kind of in the wrong. You both have done certain things that are not of common sense. So you have to at one point finally rub the dirt off your knees. Pick up the clothes, pick up everything, and start being a better person. While we're waiting on good times here, let's see. We've kind of answered a lot of these questions. I want to try to get to something a little bit new here. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Aaron. How do unresolved traumas manifest mental health in your mind? With that being said, what also are some coping techniques that you would possibly recommend?
Some of the ways it'll manifest is you hear the little voices in the back of your head saying that you'll never be good enough, or what you did was never good enough, or there is no self-worth. You don't deserve anything.
You're just like your father.
Yep. And in some ways I am just like my dad.
Okay, yeah. I promise that was only a joke.
I know. I was raised the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
Bottle it up.
Oh yeah.
Bottle it up.
Yep.
No emotions. Just bottle it up.
How dare you?
Yup.
You're not a man if you tear up.
Mm-hmm. Man up. Just baby skin. I mean, the baby skin things, yeah. I tell my kids that. It's just baby skin. It will grow back.
Yeah.
It's not, it's skin. But like emotion-wise, it eats at you and eats at you and makes you feel worthless. And there's just makes you relive it and think about it all wrong. And it just eats at you and it always sits in your mind. And sometimes you just gotta look in the mirror and look at yourself and tell yourself you are not what the voices say you are.
I agree with that. When the voices are saying you are not of self-worth, and you need to respond back to them, give it that
I am
you are.
worthy of everything I need.
Yeah. Anybody else want to answer that question?
What was the question? Sorry, I was reading that person.
Distraction. No, I'm kidding. The question is, how do unresolved traumas manifest in mental health? And what are some coping techniques that you would recommend? Aaron had mentioned when the voices are telling us that we are not worth, then we respond back to them. We are.
Self-doubt. Like, you start getting like self-doubt. I guess it's really like situational again, but like I'm like depending on the unresolved issue. Like, you start really like beating yourself up mentally. Like Zoe has mentioned earlier, we're all our worst enemy. So you start really forgetting about what was important of it and start pinning everything of what you did in the situation. And then you start really like breaking yourself down like, okay, well, I'm a bad person. I'm not good enough to be friends with other people. And then you really start like not really belittling yourself, but really like getting into your own head about every situation. And one way I feel like you can kind of cope with it is just because of stuff I do. Like,
Go ahead.
you have to really find your own coping mechanisms, and typically that's stuff that brings you joy or helps you relax or get your mind off things. So I will listen to music. I will pick up a book. Um, I will game with friends, and I don't just game with just any friends. Like, I consider a bunch of people my friends, but I go to the ones that I know, regardless if I'm in a shitty mood or if I'm depressed or if I just want to hop on Call of Duty and cuss someone out. Like, I have friends that are like, regardless what you want to do, like, let's go do it. Like, let's distract your mind for a second.
Yeah. Sometimes there ain't nothing more toxic than a Call of Duty multiplayer lobby.
You know about it. You know about it. But I'm a big writer. Like, I don't publish anything, but I love to just write. It doesn't have to necessarily be my thoughts. It doesn't have to be anything related to the situation, but just writing. Like, I don't know, it does something to my head to where I feel a lot better afterwards.
Yeah.
I like the end of the day, something I do every night is I will turn off all of my lights and use the like you don't see them right now, but my TV right back here, it has like light strips on the back.
Okay.
So I use those as the only form of light that I have in my house.
Okay.
I will turn on some lo-fi music and I will just sit there and physically meditate. I just release like all of like my tension I have right there and really just try to focus on like finding my center and then remembering what my center is. So like if I am super stressed, I just try to get rid of it right there so I don't start my next day with just this added on baggage and just running my entire next day. I know that's harder to say for most because it's harder to just let go of stress, but like just the meditation, it's calming. It's meant to be calming. Just relax your mind. Even if that's just laying down in the dark and just sitting there and focusing on your breathing. Like I know that's hard on itself because you start thinking, but like find your coping mechanism. Some people it's art. Some people it's singing. For you two, like I feel like just hearing some of y'all's stories, like yours might be watching like a Broadway or a musical. Yours might be something to do with a musical instrument. Like find what makes you happy. And when you get into a situation where you're like in your head or you're stressed or whatever it is, try it out. And if it seems to help relax you and like help you move a little forward, especially with what was that person's name? Good Times was talking about like ending it all. Like find your cope. Allow it to kind of de-stress you. I'm not saying to forgive about it or forget about it, because I mean that's going to lay dormant in your head, but like to help you get through each day so you don't take your life is find what helps you get through the day. Find what allows you to kind of separate yourself from actual reality in order to de-stress in a way. Take a bubble bath. I don't know. Like some people it's going on a walk. Like go to the park kind of like at sunset.
Anybody ever been to a rage room?
Yes, they're so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes the stuff's already broke. As long as you
Let's
wear
go break it
proper.
more.
To go ahead and cover myself here, please wear safety equipment. You know, don't mean take a sledgehammer to somebody else, but
That's how I got this knot on my head right here. It went with a baseball bat and it came back and hit me. I just have a knot on my forehead. But
yeah, they try. I
a
agree with that.
distraction, I guess, is kind of where I was going.
Like
when I went through my divorce, one good way that I distracted myself was a friend took me to an escape room because they knew I love like puzzles, like challenging things. And for like the 30 minutes we were in there or however long we were in there, like I didn't think once about like what I was actually going through. Once about like the divorce or him or any type of feeling. I was focused on the task at hand. So just like give you some time to like stay busy for a second so you're not thinking about it.
Now,
ooh, there was a spider on me. I'm sorry.
I promise Good Times, we're still up to discuss. You're coming right up. We're coming next to that little segment.
I want first crack at that though.
I will. I got you. I know everybody's, hold your horses. We're
No, I got family experience with that kind of stuff.
I got you. The final, before we get to that segment, the question I will say, the fireback question I have is, what are bad coping areas to try to find?
Easy drugs, alcohol.
I know I was about to say, can I say it on stream?
Yeah.
But like he said, like drugs, like
I know.
It,
I know that was more of that's an easy one.
but some people actually like walk down the wrong path of life. Like you see a lot of like celebrities even like they go through something traumatic. Like we might not see like a bunch of these celebrities. Like let's use Lindsay Lohan for example. We didn't see what was on set. We didn't see what was happening backstage. We only seen what paparazzis gave us and what we seen on screen.
No. I have I hate to interrupt you, but I think there's a better example. Justin Bieber.
Oh, with the P Diddy thing.
Yes.
Okay. I
Looking.
was actually Apple message what I was thinking just then. But like that's even a good one. Like he went through so much that no one knew about until now. And he's pointed out as a bad kid because he went down a really rough path. Like went to drugs, went to alcohol, like had the image of a bad guy in general because of his life choices. And I feel like a lot of people they just veer off that way just because like their mind is so like altered from the trauma and the abuse that a lot of people don't think clearly or they feel like in his instance the people that he did trust his friends like betrayed him so he went a different way to find like new friends and they just weren't the ones that he needed in his life. They steered him to what they steered him to.
So to kind of, I'm not sure. I think everybody that's in the chat and whatnot, they all kind of know what I'm talking about. But I do want to shine some light for some people that may not know. I myself in 2009, little kid, teenager and whatnot. I could not stand Justin Bieber music. I think the only song that I ever listened to was the one where Justin Bieber featured with Sean Kingston back when Sean Kingston was in the
Eeny
life.
Meeny.
Yeah,
That's my
Eeny Meeny
song.
Miny. Yeah, that was like the only song that I ever was like, dude, okay. But then taking a look into finding out what really happened. For example, not just Justin Bieber, but like Quiet on Set, the Nickelodeon episode. I really did not like a lot of these kids because I didn't like, what was being portrayed in the media or the TV shows. It just wasn't really my flavor. But then looking back looking at what they're talking about today explains so much. The song that Justin Bieber came out with not too long ago, I want to say it's called Lonely. Not Ancon Lonely, but
That's actually one of my most recent downloaded songs on my
dude,
iTunes.
since I have found out what has happened and me listening to that song, it's like I was able to understand everything that he was talking about in it. And that was I think that's the only other song that I like really enjoyed from Justin Bieber. It was the first time that I could actually relate to him as an artist. The dude went through some shit.
Right. It's like kind of like understanding the situation before understanding the message portrayed. Like his song Ghost or Ghost to Me or whatever it was called. Like understanding what all happened years after him and Selena broke up. And then like all that, like hearing that song, like you're sitting here like you actually hear the heartbreak and like the loneliness in his voice and you're just like, oh, like that put a whole new perspective on that one song.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything else they wish to add before I move forward?
Yeah, I was gonna add
Go ahead.
that it doesn't necessarily have to be drugs and alcohol. Um, You know, I hate to use this as a perfect example, or I hate to use that as an example. I know some people probably wouldn't like it. Gaming can be a bad route too. If you start to lean towards a habit of any type that causes you to neglect your your life, neglect your your needs or others' needs that are dependents of yours or anything like that, it can be an unhealthy habit. Really, anything could be an unhealthy habit if you start neglecting those things. Um, I know a lot of us use gaming as therapy, kind of blow off some steam, come and game. But if we start ignoring, like if we took a whole week off for gaming, without having the necessary PTO or even without scheduling it, like I get it when a new game releases. Yeah, we're gonna hit that game hard, and that's cool, especially when we plan it in advance. But if you're doing it because of a situation that happened and you don't know how to handle it, and it comes to a point where you're like that guy on the couch with Cheetos and a house coat, and it's like week 3 and you still don't know what the hell you're gonna do, that's not healthy. It's a problem. That's what I had to add to it. That's all.
No, I
And I'm
appreciate
glad
it.
you did add that though, because it's made me think of like another one about like going the more unhealthy route is a lot of characters that are loved in like movies and TV shows are the ones that has been through some shit and has put up like that barrier. So they're now that like mean, like badass person that like you can't affect them, but they're about to bully you anyways. Like it can lead to that. Like a lot of people, like when you think of the negative effects, it could be anything really. Like being a bully, just not having that self worth or drugs or whatever the case may be. Like it's a big negative on your like mental status.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate all these examples. So, for my next segment here, this is the final segment of the podcast here. Every episode around this time, if this is your first time watching us, once again, welcome. This is the segment where we now pay attention to you. If there is a scenario or any questions that you wish to aim towards me, myself, or the panel, or anybody that's up here with me, drop it down in the chat. I've got all my everywhere that I'm live. If you have anywhere that anything you just want to ask that pertains to the episode, this is your opportunity. I'll allow a couple of moments. I've already got a story that somebody is requesting our purview on, and we'll go from there. All right. From Good Times. Back in May of 2023, I was responding to a fire call in my personal truck. I had emergency lights. I was on the highway when a car pulled out in front of me and I T-boned them. The police department is putting the blame on me, saying I was going too fast, but I know I wasn't. Come to find out, the trooper was not even certified and was wrong on his diagram. Even with all the evidence that I brought showing, I wasn't. They refused to dismiss the charges. After $15,000 spent and a year later, I finally had to take a plea deal just to get done with it. I got put on probation for 18 months and had fines to pay. I think the part that was the worst was losing my backbone. My fire department got told to cut communication with me until it was finished. I was alone and had nowhere to go. To this day, even now, I get upset thinking about it, wondering why me? Why was I blamed when they pulled out in front of me? So I'm gonna
I'll
let,
let
yeah,
I was gonna say I'll let
Aaron.
Finn answer
Aaron
that
over here
first.
was ready to jump the gun, so I'll give you first dibs. Go ahead, Aaron.
One, if you didn't have a stop sign and they did, they're reliable because they pulled out in front of the emergency vehicle. Now, if it was flipped and PD had T-boned someone, they would have brushed it under the rug, paid the person, and been done with it. But since it was fire department, is bullshit. They pulled out in front of an emergency vehicle with emergency lights on. They're at fault. It doesn't matter how if you're going too fast or not. The person pulling out in front of an emergency vehicle is at fault. 100% all the time, unless the emergency vehicle was coming up to a red light. Then they have to make a reasonable attempt to stop, let traffic clear, then proceed. But if you're on a highway, they had the stop sign, it's their fault. My uncle, back when I was younger, was the fire department chief and was responding to a fire. Kid came up and out of the ditch, overcorrected, and he head on hit them going full speed as fast as he can go within reason to get to that fire. It ended up killing the kid. But since the kid was high on drugs, they didn't charge him with it, but he hit the car so hard it launched him out of his F-250 chief truck that they had at the time. But the fact is that the kid did it and overcorrected, caused the accident. And it's the same way as this person pulled out in front of you. So you're not at fault. The legal system needed someone to blame, so they put the blame on you. There's nothing on your fault. Don't let them say it's your fault. I get you already did, but from moving forward, it's never been your fault. They pulled out in front of an emergency vehicle with lights on, responding to an emergency. It is their fault. It will
And
never
to
be your
add
fault.
to that, coming from another like professional's point of view, um, especially this happens a lot with like EMTs with ambulances and stuff. Like they will have their lights on. They don't necessarily stop at like stop signs and red lights and stuff. They are told to slow down, and if it is safe to go, to continue to go. But the general population, like this sounds really cliche and very rude, and I don't mean it in that way, but they're only concerned about themselves. They could care less that Susie Paul down the road had a heart attack and this ambulance is trying to save their life. Just like you were responding to a fire call. So your main focus was getting to that fire so no one got hurt. Um, so they're so quick to blame, like, whoa, you were doing this, you were doing this, you were doing this, excusing all evidence of you weren't even at fault. For one, you had your lights on, you were on the highway, and they had a stop sign that they ran. So, like Aaron was
Even if
saying,
they
like,
did stop and then proceeded to pull out in front of you, is still illegal.
yeah, like they still pulled out in front of you on a
I have a
busy interstate, really. But like the general population is so quick at pointing fingers regardless of the information they know and always feeling justified by, well, that's my opinion, like I'm sticking to it. So for like, I mean, two of us agree that this isn't even your fault, but to shed light on like your question, like why are you being blamed, is the fact of, like, I see it on a daily basis. They don't want to take blame. They don't want to take responsibility. And a lot of people love to jump on the side of like the person hurt regardless of the situation. So they're blaming you because they don't think you should be going as fast. They don't think that this person did anything wrong because they're the one that got hurt. So like they just blindly blame people, and for that situation to happen, they don't care about the reasoning. They're just like, well, you hurt them, you're at blame.
Hmm.
So, question: did they say it was a personal vehicle or a county
They were
vehicle?
in a personal vehicle with emergency lights on. Then
Okay.
it technically still counts as an emergency vehicle.
Yeah. I mean, it should, but I think honestly, for liability reasons, they probably pinned it on you for that very reason because they have to blame somebody. Um, I
The
would,
car pulling out.
yeah, yeah, I know. I would. It sounded like it was the car pulling out's fault. Yeah, but like I said, I think because you were in a personal vehicle, they decided it'd be easier to blame you than to blame that person, which is pretty sad. Honestly, it's really sad that they did that.
Okay, another question. Did you have firefighter plates on or first responder plates on your personal vehicle? Because if you did, that changes it.
He says, I've never wanted to harm anyone. Yes, the other vehicle and passenger got injured, but I don't wish that on anyone. That's why I joined the fire department, is to help others. Hell, I even went through EMT school while fighting all these charges. So, good times. I want to clarify here. I'm pretty sure as much as you know, but I just want to put it in the clear here. So far, none of the panel says that you're in the wrong. A lot of the panel is actually on your side. He says technically no fire plates, but it was registered as an emergency vehicle with the state.
Yep,
I mean,
it's
with
not
it
your
being
fault.
registered, it's still registered regardless if you have the like required plate or not.
Well, the plates aren't required. It
Yeah,
just
it's even
helps.
here we don't need them. And you had emergency lights on. Like
An
I
emergency
know we
vehicle.
talked about it a lot of times earlier, like common sense. We are trained that if you see lights, you pull over. Like if it's EMTs or an
Typically, if
ambulance or a
it's
fire truck, you pull over out of respect. If it's a cop, you pull over because you thought you just got pulled over. But like, you don't pull out in front of them because 9 times out of 10, they're probably going past the speed limit to get to this said emergency. So they're not going to have the reaction time of slamming on their brakes and not hitting you. So being at a stop sign on an intersection, seeing, because I mean, you have to look left and right if you're going to cross it. Seeing these lights, like common sense tells you not to pull forward. So, I mean, they're at fault for just proceeding to go and getting hit.
so before we go any further on this topic, I do want you to understand that none of us are legal attorneys. You know, I hate to throw that little slogan out there, but this is just to cover anybody here on the podcast as well. I have to, by TOS standards, I do have to state that, okay? This is just our personal opinions. We are not legal advisors in any aspect, okay? With that out of the way, from my standpoint, let's see. In Colorado, you have to get a permit with a state to get permission to run lights. Okay. So, in my personal opinion, I do agree with the panel. If you had it state registered, if you had the permit, if you had XYZ to get it done, then yeah, they should be the ones to be hit with the fines because they did not give you right of way. I'm not sure how they do it in Colorado. However, here in my state, yeah, I would have gotten a ticket for impeding traffic. Now, do you know how fast they were saying that you you were going, because I do know there are laws on that aspect. Even though you have the permit, that don't mean you can just willy-nilly go 125 down the road. You have to have like approval from your supervisors and whatnot. Okay, so Wubsy comments here. Wubsy says, I was a firefighter for many years who ran their own personal vehicle with lights as well. By no means whatsoever is it legal in my state to run a red, even if you are responding to a call. You must sit and wait like the rest of traffic, unless they are to yield to you. But personal vehicles get no right of way. Okay, so Wubsy.
I can see that as a red light.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that may be why they're still hitting you, is regardless of what the vehicle is registered under. If you were in a fire truck, if you were in an engine and that happened, then they would have then they would have gotten the other people. But if the facts are what Wubsy states, then that's what they're hitting you on, is because you're in a personal vehicle.
But from
But-
reading what happened, it doesn't sound like they were at a red light. This person
No, they were on the
stopped at a
highway.
stop sign on a highway and drove in front of them and got T-boned.
So I'm gonna reread bits and pieces, or I'm gonna reread everything just to make sure I'm covering everything that information's being provided. Back in May of 23, I was responding to a fire call in my personal truck. I had emergency lights. I was on the highway when a car pulled out in front of me and I T-boned them. The police department is putting the blame on me, saying I was going too fast, but I know I wasn't. Come to find out, the trooper was not even certified and was wrong in his diagram. Even with all the evidence that I brought showing I wasn't, they refused to dismiss the charges. He got hit with 18 months of probation for taking a plea deal. Let's see. Then he states, I was on a highway. They had stop sign. So it wasn't.
They pulled out in front of him.
And then he goes to comment, and if it was a controlled intersection and I blew a red light or something, then I know I would be totally at fault. But that's where I'm wondering why this was blamed on me. They said at the time of impact, I was 74 in a 45 upwards of 107 prior. I was in a F-250, which if you know those trucks, they are governed at 96. With that info, the trooper that said I was the one who was not certified, when I hired an expert, he said my speed was 50 and 60, which is 5 and 15 over.
And many states allow firefighters responding in personal vehicles to travel upwards to 20 over the posted speed limit sign. That's in a fire truck, a cop car, or an ambulance if they're responding. Now, high-speed chase is the only time they're exempt from that for a cop car.
Right.
But personal vehicles with flashing emergency lights responding to a call, fire trucks, and ambulances all are permitted to go 20 over. That's it. At least in the state of Iowa, is 20 over.
Right. In a fire truck or a paramedic vehicle. The problem,
even in personal, as long as it's the flashing lights and responding to a call, you can travel up to 20 over as long as you're responding to a call. At least in my state. I was told that by a cop, an EMT, and a volunteer firefighter.
right. Before this
Like I
sparks
said, in my
outburst, I don't want to, like I said, we're all just kind of giving our opinions here. However, that good times, that would be the two opinions that you have here. Depending on your state law, I would start looking into the answer as to, does the law adhere to personal vehicle, or does the law not pertain to personal vehicle? I think that right there is the line that we're going through. But speaking into the aspect of how it's affecting you, I can definitely see the turmoil, because even up here in the panel, we're already asking those questions of, we need more context. We need more, start asking the 20 questions. But no, I definitely feel for you, man. You said earlier, that it was personally affecting you because you found out that if you were found guilty of the original charges, then you could have got up to 3 years in prison per charge. And you didn't want to risk that for your wife and kids. I can definitely see, I can definitely understand the turmoil in that and trying to figure out what's the right steps. Yeah, even Wubsy says, I won't call you wrong, man, but honestly, when I was a responder, did the same thing. Had his fair share of close calls.
People don't pay attention in this day and age anymore.
Them damn kids, it's all about what's on that phone.
I gotta lie, I've caught a few cops sitting there driving on their phones.
Hey, see, this is where it gets tricky because I just looked it up.
Okay.
It says that volunteer firefighters can equip personal vehicles with signal lights. Authorized vehicles in Colorado can exceed the speed limit if it is safe to do so, and they're using their audible and visual signals. However, they must not endanger a life or property, which in this instance, it's not like you were endangering someone, they pulled out in front of you. Colorado is also a move over state that requires a driver to slow down and move completely out of an emergency vehicle way in order for them to get to the prior, I don't know why it says prior, but it says prior destination safely. This means to slow down and move over. Drivers who do not follow the move over law can be fined, hindering first responders and cause accidents. So you could possibly pull the move over law on.
Okay.
I feel like the PD may have something to do with it, because not all cops are straight. As in,
Were they trying to meet quota? No, I'm
yeah,
kidding.
Yeah.
yeah, right. And yeah, like Wubsy said, PD had a job to do. I don't think the PD did their job to the best of their abilities, because they're supposed to know a lot of the laws. Like, yes, I get some cops can't remember every single law every single state has, or their state has. There's hundreds of laws, and according to traffic rules and violations, but why didn't they question it and look it up?
So here's it. I want to kind of try to give attention to some other people if they have anything. This is the Tater recommendation. If you find it suitable that you wish to get to chase this case and you feel like you have something valid, I would go ahead and start with an appeal. Get back with your attorney and appeal to a higher court. So not your city, not your county, but go for like the state court.
Supreme Court of the
Challenge.
state.
Yeah, and not an attorney from the state. Get somebody nationalized, and do not go through the public defender. That would be my recommendation. The reason I state this is because if you get somebody nationalized, then you're going to, number one, you're going to get their weight worth in gold. So that's my opinion. Is if you feel like you have just cause and you have the law on your side, on paper, then I would go ahead and request an appeal. All right. I'm gonna. Everything all right?
Pause before an ad break. So they can't really hear what we're saying during the ad breaks.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to let the ads play through before telling good times.
No, that's fine. I'm cool repeating if needed.
Yeah. Oh, there is a setting in Twitch
about
where
to just be done with ad 3 out of 4.
Do what?
I'm just now getting done with my 3rd ad. I just started my 4th ad.
Yep. There is a way to let you set up a notification that there is an ad coming up.
You can even turn ads off.
Where can I do?
People just turn on. You go into your
Inside of
settings.
Twitch. We can do that after.
Yeah, we can help you do that because the ads are just simply just to bring in just like a few more cents of revenue.
No, I gotcha.
Okay. Good times. Another thing is don't settle with one lawyer. Go talk to 2 or 3 to get an idea of like, hey, this might work or this might work. Don't just settle with one attorney. And don't get one appointed to you. They are overloaded with cases as it is. Go find a lawyer. Yes, it's going to cost you. But I'd rather pay the $5,000 on a person, like on a attorney that works for himself versus getting a free state attorney.
Correct. So, good times. I know you were watching ads. To go ahead and sum up what we were trying to say earlier is if you feel like you have just cause, I never took appointed one. I hired one, which is why I was $15K deep in this. Okay. I'd go with an appeal. Try to go with an appeal. And that's
find a different lawyer.
Yeah. Because if you go for the appeal and they approve your appeal, you can actually go back and countersue the lawyer for services and get your money back.
And the PD for incorrect job procedures.
Yep.
If you're going to go for the appeal, I would definitely do some of your own personal research. Just like I just looked it up and we found out the what was it, move over law?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that's something you can bring up to like a new attorney to kind of set your case at a higher bar. Because if you go talk to an attorney with more information than just showing them like, okay, well, here's the story and this is the outcome, like they will take more of an initiative on getting you the better outcome because you have more information that you've looked up. So like the move over law, I would get documentation that your vehicle is certified and with the lights and everything, like supply all that so your lawyer has legs to stand on, not just trying to build a case based off of like a little like small story.
Okay. All right. So that's pretty much everything that I got at the moment here. Is there anybody else that wishes to bring up any topics they wish to Any topics that they wish to bring up before we shut her down for the evening? Anybody from my panel got anything they want me to, they want my opinion on outside of what I've gone over on the podcast?
Yeah, like I get not having the money to go do it, but just know that it's not your fault. Just complete out the 18 months of probation and just look past it. Like you said, you have a wife and kids, and that's 6 years you would have not been with them if you didn't take that plea deal. But it's done. It's past. Just keep looking forward and
Keep
just
your
watch
head up.
and just think that you now get to see your kids grow up. Because
Yeah.
if you would have not taken that plea deal, you would have missed 6 years of their life, and they would have remembered that.
All
And
right.
moving on in life, like you said, you like to help people and stuff. You don't have to be a fireman to help someone. Like you said, you were going to EMT school and stuff like that. Like there's other fields out there that you can physically get into and still carry out like your passion.
Nursing school.
And yeah, like go to nursing school.
I know
Go
it.
if you don't want to be like an actual nurse, go like become a farm tech or like just a lab tech in general. Like there's other ways to help people, and it will allow you to move forward, continue on with life, feel better about yourself, and still help people in the same way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to appreciate everybody coming out and watching the episode today. Guys, we're up to like 10 people watching at the same time. We went from over the last 6 weeks getting these topics in. We've gone from me just sitting here, me and everybody just talking, to having a group of people starting to hone in on these topics. And I really appreciate everybody that comes in every Thursday. Next week's episode, we'll be diving into the complexities of managing technology, online spaces, and our mental health with an episode. We're going to be going over the tech, trolling, and triggers, navigating the dark side of the digital age. We're going to be exploring cyberbullying, the impact of digital media, our own well-being, and strategies for protecting our mental health online. Remember, self-forgiveness is a journey, and you may not be able to resolve everything overnight, but taking small steps, you can move forward towards healing. Once again, I want to thank everyone who shared their stories, questions, and support tonight. We're in this together. Like I always said earlier, I want to be the lighthouse for you guys, for those of you who are calling out in the darkness. I do want to ask if you know any friends, families, or anybody that could potentially use this podcast. Please recommend this. You know, without you guys, I wouldn't keep this up. I stream this podcast every evening, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central. And I'm always willing to hear you out. If you have any questions or anything, see me on my social media. I'm on all platforms under the Tater-Talks. And I'd be more than happy to either bring up your story or, hey, maybe potentially bring you up onto the panel for one night. As always, I want to thank Aaron, I want to thank Atlas, and I want to thank our special guest tonight, Miss Birdie. Did you like the podcast?
I did. I had so much fun.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Aaron, Atlas? How you guys? How did y'all think?
Good.
Oh,
It was
good.
a pretty good episode.
Yeah. All right.
Wasn't much of the conversation type tonight, but if you checked out last week's stuff, I was
Hey,
talking
man.
away.
Hey man, look, some of these episodes are gonna hit home. Some of these episodes are really, I may bring up a topic that I myself would want to talk to everybody about, but I myself not have really a lot of input because it's sort of an episode for me. I feel like based on the story that you were talking about, I felt like this episode kind of honed with you. And maybe you just needed to sit back and listen, and it's okay.
That's why I'm here. If I didn't show up for the podcast, because wasn't gonna talk about much, I probably wouldn't have watched it because it's probably something I didn't want to hear,
Right.
but I needed to hear it, so I forced myself to be here. So I had to listen.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you. I mean, I enjoy being on your podcast, Tater.
Yeah. So for everybody that's out there, please, I'm always willing to hear you out, and I'm always here waiting for you. I'm more than happy to be here for everybody. As always, it is wonderful to see y'all, and I will see y'all next Thursday at 7 p.m. With Aaron and Atlas. And as always, have a wonderful night. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Find myself some peace of mind. I know I'm never going places. Do they have what I can't find? When the life is getting harder, every thought is just a dread. I have this never-ending riot, always marching in my head. We're on our own, everything's an act, all so alone, stuck on dial tone. We're on our own, everything's an act, all so alone. Let me just go home. Just go. We're on our own, everything's an act, all so alone, stuck on dial tone. We're on our own, everything's an act, all so alone. Let me just go.
Like the attention, girl, I know you. But you're everything I want in life. We're fighting danger like kung fu. The love I feel is deep inside. The others don't matter. It's honestly us against the world. We're the perfect team. You're my dream, but I just want it. Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Oh baby, if you ever need a helper, you should know that I'll be there day and night. Nobody else can love you better. I'm here just to treat you right. You're the reason I'm alive. You're the only pain I can endure. And when you're not here, you're my dream, but I just want it. Yeah, I just wanna. I just want it. Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can knew from the start you my